So anyways, let's just start. Cool. We're here with Charles and Eric Horvitz.
Nice to be back on Channel 9 again.
Yeah.
Cool.
Welcome. And this is the research building, right?
Yes.
Now, are you guys are building a new building, right?
Believe it or not, we're going to be next year in Building 99.
Building 99.
Sounds like a Get Smart movie or something.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And we're actually helping to design the building. It's one of the first times that this has happened, where people moving into a building soon give a lot of input and design, and we're coming up with all sorts of interesting ideas about projection walls. And
I bet.
this building is going to really look like a research building.
Well, Building 18 has no stairs between second and third floor, or first and second floor, which, if I ever meet the architect who designed your building, I'm going to shoot him.
Generally for a fire pole. We often thought we'd put a fire pole in between second floor and third floor. We collaborate a lot to stump down and have one of those bat lifters to get up. The bat cave kind of rockets to get up. People say, how are you going to get up when you go down those poles? The bat lifters, of course.
Now, is it going to be in Redmond or is it going to be downtown?
It's going to be right in the parking lot, about 2 buildings down. That was just where there was some sort of a big warehouse building that was just taken down.
Cool.
Yeah.
Excellent. So, what are we going to talk about today?
I'd like to fill you in a little bit about Bestcom. So Bestcom is a phrase that a bunch of us have been throwing around at Microsoft for several years now. Actually, about 5 years ago, I did a Think Week piece about the opportunity for integrating in.
And Think Week is when you write Bill Gates a paper,
so
and he goes off
every
for a
6
week.
months, Bill basically and his staff ask for ideas from the company. And people take this seriously. They actually write up very thoughtful pieces typically. And the big sheaf, I guess you have to ask Alex Guinaris or Bill how big the sheaf of papers is, but I guess it's electronic these days, but they're probably printed out. And Bill goes off to a retreat and spends time thinking about them. And it's incredible how many he actually answers personally and annotates with comments, and then actually works with his staff to distribute to the best people to receive them, and the company sharing ideas. So I did a Think Week piece in around 2000 or so on what I call best effort interpersonal communication, that I sort of shortened to Bestcom.
Okay.
It sort of means if two people want to speak to one another, why not reason or sense and reason about their context and their goals, what's going on right now, maybe a little bit later, and figure out if, when, and how to hook them together.
Okay.
Get around this kind of dueling voicemail machine issue we have, or figure out if someone should be routed to voicemail all the time versus routed through, like my wife these days, with breakthrough privileges that you'll see in a few minutes. Or maybe down mode, someone wants to basically use the verb Bestcom. I want to Bestcom somebody someday. They just say, I want to Bestcom this person. And my communication agent speaks to your communication agent, which knows about our contexts, and decides if, when, and how the best way to communicate might be. For example, it might turn out that email's the best way to do it.
Based on, so when you say context, it's based on the current thing that you happen to be doing.
Your calendar, whether you're talking or not, and they'll see in a few minutes. My system right now knows that we're talking.
It does.
So if my wife calls, it'll know to basically, by pre-arrangement with her, she found out about the Bestcom system, it'll break through. But if Steve Sinofsky calls, he might get deferred to voicemail right now. I have to check my settings. I think he's still not in the critical associates list. But anyway, so
all right, we won't go
just
there.
kidding, Steve. So I think actually he is. We'll check in a minute. So the basic idea here is this is the academic part of the talk here.
Okay.
Excuse me, conversation.
Sure.
The idea is to basically have a contactee and a contactor, two people that want to talk to one another or communicate in some way, have a context and a context fuser that's looking at calendar and desktop events, what's up on your screen, or you're in a debugger, in Visual Studio writing code, your location with GPS, for example, acoustics in a room for whether or not you're talking, and so on. And it also knows about your preferences. It also knows about all your devices, how you can be reached. And that's the contactee. The contactor has the same kind of situation here. And so what happens in the vision of Bestcom is a contactor wants to contact a contactee. He comes to communication with the contactee's Bestcom manager. There's a Bestcom schema, an XML blob that gets sent off saying, capturing the intent, documents want to be registered, a source modality. I'm calling from a Pocket PC right now, or a desktop system somewhere, and there's a best means reasoning goes on between the contactee and contactor, and then a call is set up, some sort of communication. That's the basic idea of how it all works. And so early on in 2001, as part of our Think Week paper, we set up a little demo here. We said, here's somebody in Word, a Word document right now.
Okay.
And I see an edit here that darn Eric Horvitz made. It says provide a set of standards, and I think there should be just one standard. So I want to sort of right click and see and basically get a sense for, yeah, that was Eric Horvitz here. Right click again, and now I say I want to Bestcom everybody about this. So I'm upset. Well, let me talk to Eric first here. So I basically click on Bestcom here, and basically the system goes out and tells me it's establishing a telephone link with Eric, and we can now talk about the project. It tells me also that the screen is unavailable, so Eric's not on a screen but just on a phone right now, so we can't share in the communication. In another situation here, which we explored with software just in a few minutes here, is I click again here, I Bestcom Eric, and the system basically now goes out and it tells me, it's checking Eric's preferences, and it's computed that for me right now, given that I'm punching through an edit on a document that we just are working on this week, that I can do voicemail now. I can schedule a real-time call in 15 minutes, not right now because maybe Eric's talking right now, or do email. I'm going to basically schedule a call in 15 minutes here. So the idea is I go out to the service now, and it schedules me. I'm Susan in this case, and wants to know if I want to call Eric at 3:15, and I say, yeah, put me down for a meeting with Eric. And that's basically the idea of Bestcom notion, integrating in software with communications. The idea of a rich infrastructure that can understand that I want to talk to Eric about this edit right now, and sort of almost the vision almost is you punch through the screen like an elastic screen, and you drag the document, this comment with you into the communications, and that document is used in decision making about how we should talk as well, based on Eric's preferences in this case. So anyway, that led to a bunch of prototypes, infrastructure, helped to stimulate the creation of a product line, which I'll talk about in a minute or two here. But let me just show you right now one of the efforts that came out of this, and that's the Bestcom Enhanced Telephony, or ET system, which you might find very interesting here. So this system here is a piece of software that was designed and built by our team here, the Adaptive Systems Group, working very closely with the real-time collaboration group, a small team there. About 6-7 people worked on this over a period of 2 years, and we first fielded this in 2002.
Okay.
It came to be used by 12,000 Microsoft employees. It spread like wildfire. The idea is that this is a piece of software that talks to several servers and to the Intercom PBX system. So it actually integrates in software and with the phone system at Microsoft, as well as jumping from that phone system to mobile devices, given that you're not around. But the idea is I set up some preferences here. So for example, right now, I have everyone above me in the organization. You can see here is Bill, Rick Rasha, Dan Ling, and so on. Meetings in the next hour, these dynamic groups. You see Charles Torre and Robert Scoble are in that list right now. And your phone numbers here. There's some direct integration. I can just click on that and call you now.
Excellent.
And I don't want to do that right now. So it's talking to the back end
Didn't
here.
it, see, now if I was running the software, it'd know that Charles is not there. He's here.
Why aren't you
I
running
would
the
say
software?
Charles is here.
Yeah. So you may see, maybe if you're running that, it would actually do something very interesting called reschedule. I'll show you in a few minutes. Automatic reschedule.
Cool.
So my direct reports, my manager, people I called today. So I just called Robert and Paul in this case. Here's one, critical associates, that you can build ad hoc groups. So you see Bill is in there, Bill Gates, my wife, Mary Bettencourt Horvitz. Oh, Steve Sinofsky, he's in there.
Ah.
Easy. And so So these people are given, we give all these groups different costs of deferrals or privileges. They can get breakthrough, they can get a high cost of deferral, which means I don't want to defer them to voicemail, I want to get them now no matter what I'm doing. And in general, what the system does is a cost benefit. You set up a cost benefit analysis. So how busy am I, and what's the cost of missing a call in real time from somebody? And it just sort of it weighs these things in reasoning about who to let through, how to ring, whether to go to mobile or not if you're not at your desk, for example, as well.
Okay.
So let me go to preferences here and show you a little bit more about this. Bestcom Smart Call.
Now, this is something that outside people can't use yet, right? This is only for Microsoft employees, pretty much.
This code base led directly to the Communicator product,
Office Communicator.
Office Communicator, which we're now shipping.
Yeah.
Many of the advanced Bestcom or Best means communication features are not shipping now, but we expect them to be shipping in the future. And we integrated IM and real-time calling as well as the presence from some of this work, and shipped that first. But I suspect we'll be layering these features in over time. So you might view this as the kind of stuff that was available at Microsoft that led to the Communicator product line and to the vision that Communicator now represents. In some ways, a preview of what you might see in Communicator someday.
It sort of shows how research and product teams sort of work together.
Oh, it was great.
If you're doing raw research and playing with things and trying to learn what works and what doesn't, and then the product team has to figure out what's going to actually make it into the product and is good enough for normal everyday people to use, not just Microsoft employees.
Yeah, this is one of the most fast-paced, fulfilling MS research product interactions we've had. It went very quickly, and I remember we all jumped up and down when we announced codename Istanbul, the Communicator product, and we started with the enhanced telephony code base.
Excellent.
So here's where I set up my context, and we started out with probability theory and decision theory and machine learning. I think in a previous tape you heard about busybody and so on. For most of the users at Microsoft, we created a system that we took some learnings from our machine learning work, and it's made it easy to set up with direct manipulation, as we say. So for example, here I can say, I am busy when, and in my case I can just drag in a bunch of activity-related things here, calendar distinctions, as well as sensors. Let me go back here again. See right now the system says, busy, you're in a conversation.
Yeah.
So it's sensing me talking right now, just a laptop microphone right here. We've been very intrigued with the power of ubiquitously available sensors like laptop microphones. Another ubiquitous sensor is called the calendar, which knows all about meetings and who's coming to meetings and the properties of meetings. It's kind of a noisy sensor because sometimes you don't go to meetings, but it's an interesting sensor nonetheless.
Sure.
But what you do here in the system is basically you set up activities and times, and for activity I've said here, I'm busy when I'm giving a PowerPoint presentation. I can change that by saying, click over here, and I can say,
Have you taught your system a little bit about where I am and how close I am to your? If you invite me over to 113, it takes about 10 minutes to get from Building 18 to over here, and a lot of times Outlook really messes with my head because people will, like we had to go up to Sammamish, which is a 25 minute drive,
right,
and somebody schedules this for an hour, and then somebody schedules this for another appointment right after that, and it's like, I'm not going to make that one. And Outlook isn't smart enough to know that I'm in two separate places scheduled.
I should say that there's a killer app, which we've talked about for like a decade, which just put locations and estimated times into Outlook and have it block out time for travel. And it's almost an obvious thing, and it'll be done one of these days. I'm sure it's coming soon. We've all talked about it forever. I'm not sure why it's not in the product yet.
It's hard to do, right?
Well, you can imagine for a company like Microsoft, you can at least put in building pairs and estimated times. And it's like, allow 15 minutes for a building at Microsoft in this quadrant versus across campus in a different campus. Allow a half hour for going to Seattle, and so on. And that could just be put in there even at setup time, and it would put little buffers in around your meetings. And so that's kind of one of these things we'd all like to see in that product.
Now, as this evolves, are you going to be able to differentiate between voices? For example, if your wife's in your office and she's talking on the phone, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're here because of voices, or that you're busy.
We could imagine that being true, but I'd say that my wife would say that we're really busy at that time.
Okay.
Extremely busy. Now, it's funny with technology. I mean, back to the social issues here. When my wife found out about Bestcom, and she heard them talking about it and so on, and we're up and running now, and here's how it works. I mentioned breakthrough privileges, and Bill and Steve Sinofsky and Jeff Frakes had them, senior executives, Rick Rashid, and so on. She said, well, I'll take the breakthrough privileges too. I said, okay.
Yeah.
I couldn't say no.
Yeah.
So you really have technology, and as part of a social issue is you have to sort of talk about it and make it available when people ask for it who you care about. When my wife calls, it turns out to be a very useful thing. I just tell people, my phone is ringing now. I got to get it because my preferences say I should get this call, even though, of course, this is an important meeting. It's because my phone wouldn't ring if it didn't come through the breakthrough groups, like meeting in an hour, meeting today, or it's your wife or a senior executive calling. So I know my phone rings, mobile or desktop here, which comes through the phone speakers here.
Yeah.
And I can tell by the chime of even the subgroup of who it is that's calling. So I can tell by the chime if it's somebody calling for a meeting within an hour versus if it's my wife calling. I have a little train horn for my wife, actually. It comes out. Her even in the hallway here. And she also knows, by the way, so I think one of her phones typically doesn't reveal itself, caller ID.
Yeah.
She even knows I'm calling from the outside, that she reveals herself to my agent, so the agent knows to route it to me instead of holding off and saying, unknown caller. This is a low priority call, and it wouldn't break through unless I'm really, really not busy, or sometimes for some of my low priority groups, like unknown caller, no contact listed, it's always voicemail by the system here. So right now, so here's what I say here. I say that I'm busy when I'm in PowerPoint giving a presentation, when I'm using Excel, Visual Studio, or any debugger, when my manager's organized a meeting, when the number of attendees is more than 5 people, and when competition detected, and this is a big or here, and I can get in here and pivot and change and say, well, how about when it's when it's 3 to 5 people and so on, and add that. I can say when the meeting organizer is me, slide that in, and do that again here. Meeting organizer is me, slide that in. And you see now is when I get out of here, it's going to basically, you see it's picking the most important distinction here to show me as a summary of what's going to happen. I can also click on this little light bulb here, and it'll give me a summary of my whole policy here. What's going to happen when, and actually our users ask for this. Now I want to see exactly in one place what's going to happen when you're busy right now. Here's who you accept calls from. Here's what you do with other groups. When I'll be rescheduling and so on. And I can actually hinge in here. I can say, something, I want to basically remove my direct reports from this group here and change that. So I can say, for my direct reports here, I can say low priority, which I wouldn't typically do, just show you how that works. And then the policy now changes over here. My direct reports is now here. So it just gives you a sense of what's happening at any moment. The other thing we do is, besides the activities, is times. And this is called, we love this little palette. It's a 7 by 24 little palette here. Very easy to use. I can say, pick a color here, block calls every day of the week between these times here, sleep in. More Saturday and Sunday, I want to sleep in later. I am busy during these times. Just paint that like a little Excel spreadsheet.
Nice.
And within a couple minutes, you can basically really assess 24 hours of your background default busyness, regardless of what your activity palette says, which is nice. So what happens at runtime is this default time palette and the activity palette work together to basically define quickly for users in a very concise way when you're busy versus not busy. And in a more advanced version, you can pull down a window and say, in a more advanced version, you give low, medium, and high busy, and low, medium, and high caller priority in this cost-benefit analysis. And it basically lets calls through in there at least at the level of your busyness. to match that low, medium, and high. It's very
Right.
cool in some ways. Very nice.
Can the system tell callers, his next expected, available time is going to be 10 a.m. or something
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
that?
Do you have sensors?
You can tell this is an old screenshot because
Ah.
Mark Lukowski is there.
Well,
My very good friend
He works
who's now at
At Google. But he could still be in that list, right? If he's using Windows.
Actually, Mark Lukowski can be in that list. As a ad hoc person, I just add that's that's only in my contacts, not necessarily in the Microsoft address book. So,
Yeah.
so by moving to Google, Mark, you went from the address book at Microsoft to the Gentle contacts list. You can still call. I might change you from a high priority to like a voicemail only person. just kidding. We always get breakthrough privileges around here, Mark. Especially when I share continue some of the wonderful projects we've worked on in the past.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the way that system works, which is very nice. Now, I should say behind the scenes here, which is kind of cool, is the kind of deeper probabilistic stuff we've been doing here. It's funny. The system went from PowerPoint presentation to meeting being me. Anyway, we had
That's an interesting question though, because I get a lot of calls from common people that I know, and some are really important calls. Like, I have a business opportunity for you, and I need to know about it now. And some are just like, hey, can I chat about my new HD TV? And is there any way for him to tell the system? The problem is that people wouldn't
Absolutely.
do that.
So it's very interesting. When you think about Bestcom, which is a broad area of research, best means communication between two people. There are two decision makers, not just one. Now, this particular version of Bestcom prototyping, we basically made the contactee the owner of the attention, the owner of the decision making. It's the contactee who puts his or her preferences into the system,
Right.
and the contactor has to just deal with them. That a lot of feedback.
So if Mark called you and said, I'm ready to quit Google and come back to Microsoft,
I wouldn't know that right
Yeah.
now. But this is one prototype. In other versions of the system, which we're working on, including a system called Bayesphone for Reverend Bayesphone, which is actually takes a lot of the Bestcom work and puts it on right onto a cell phone, and it compiles it down onto the cell phone into a set of situation action policies and other kinds of interesting policies. I think are very interesting. You can read about in the Bayesphone paper on our website at Microsoft Research. But in the general case with Bayesphone, one of the concepts is I can give you privileges to basically take actions when you're calling me. So phone's in my pocket, Bayesphone's in my pocket, and you call me, and I'm in a meeting and I'm talking and I'm busy right now. Bayesphone actually listens to a Bluetooth microphone. If I'm wearing it, looking like a geek at a meeting, because it's sampling the microphone, I'm talking or not directly. I'm sure this was a tech fest a couple of years ago, actually.
Yeah.
But it knows that I'm busy, but it knows that you're Robert Scoble. And so it picks up in my pocket, doesn't even ring, just picks up and it says, hi, this is Eric. I'm in a meeting right now, and the meeting will end in 17 minutes. If it's really important, press star. You'll buzz me lightly. Give me a moment to walk out of the room. I'll take the call. If you want to just reschedule for the end of the meeting, hit pound and we'll talk then. Thanks. If I hear a little buzz, I know someone's gotten that message. I go, excuse me a second. I know that person is waiting patiently, and I have to run out. And I can take the call. So the idea is to give these phones the ability to actually not just reason about if, when, and how to let somebody through and how to ring the phone call, which is what it currently does, but also to actually pick up and play different outgoing messages depending on who you are and how much time is left and when you can reschedule for. Turns out the architecture for smartphones and pocket PCs can't pick up yet and send out outgoing messages, but we're pushing on that, and we'd like to sort of that be part of that's part of our the grand scenario there. So we'd like to give people views into what's going on in your life. Now, also the broader notion of the system that we actually showed at TechFest a few years ago actually included the decision theory or automatic machine learning about some of these costs and benefits, as well as sharing out your state and forecasts about when you'd be available. So we have pieces of that running. It's called Bestcom Coordinate. You can read about Coordinate on our website as well, a paper from 2002. But with Coordinate, basically, here's what's going on behind the scenes here. Oh, I want to send a message to, let's say Paul Koch. And I get in here, and
Of course, this system is pretty scary because now that I have an Xbox 360, all my friends can see when I'm playing Xbox, right? Because it shows when I'm online.
Well, privacy is very important, so we'd like to basically have tools that...
No, I don't care about privacy,
So
but
then
I'm
that's
sharing
scary
with
then,
you.
right?
But now my friends can call up, and if I don't answer their phone call, and they see that I'm playing Xbox, they go, "Oh, your Xbox is more important than me." Huh?
well, more even broadly than that, the minute you have this technology, let's say somebody's calling somebody, and they're always getting voicemail all the time, and they know the technology exists. There's the worry that you can sort of infer where you stand in that person's life. It's even worse than like screening, the voice recorder. Now it's like, man, I must be in some darn low priority list in this guy's Bestcom control system because I'm never getting through. On the other hand, imagine what Bestcom means. It means that you can just Bestcom somebody someday as a verb and not worry about imposing because their agent will handle things. One of the scenarios we have is that you're Bestcomming Bill Gates all the time. You have ideas, at Microsoft. You're going to share your ideas with Bill Gates, and you Bestcom him, and you always get an email pop up. You go, okay, well that's fine. That's where I stand, and what Bill's busy right now. And there you are one night, hitting the Bestcom button, Bestcom Bill Gates, and the phone rings, and Bill picks up. Hello? Oh, hi, Bill. I didn't mean to bother you. No. It's I was just I wanted to see what would come through. I'm relaxing right now, and I'm a little bit bored. And Bestcom decided to let you through. And so you should Bestcom can enable those kinds of scenarios because it's you're never imposing because it's the preferences of the recipient in this case who are actually which is I should say deciding on what's going to happen.
Excellent.
So it's kind of interesting set of scenarios that could enable. You can also imagine unsolicited phone callers now saying, I can say, if the unsolicited phone call program wants to basically call me really badly and will give me, for listening to their pitches, let's say 1,000 cell phone minutes per month, if I just do 5 pitches, I can say, sure, you can call me, but when I'm not talking, and between 6 and 6:30 before dinner in my home, and they can Bestcom me. They can even pay to Bestcom me per call. You can make it into an economic system.
There's a company named Ether that actually has a phone number that if I'm a lawyer and I'm charging, let's say $200 per hour for my time, will arrange the time when you can call, and it arranges the payment and everything. And then once the payment's made, it connects us at that prearranged time. It's pretty interesting business model.
Yeah. In fact, even more abstract notions are possible. We have a notion we pushed around the company a little bit. We actually implemented a small prototype. But we're thinking of getting bigger with our infrastructure here, given all the users we have, called interruption tokens. So for people, you might say, if I'm busy and they can't get through, they can actually, if they're on a particular list of groups, like people who I'm writing a document with, people whom are on this particular SharePoint server. I show you the various kinds of groups. We have lots of rich groups like that involve documents and meeting types and so on. People who I just met with within an hour and so on. But the idea is to actually give certain people the ability to break through, but it costs them a breakthrough token that I can use on them. So it's like this attentional economy where we have these, interruption tokens. And I can save up my tokens and use them on them. People often say, well, how many of your tokens is worth a Bill Gates breakthrough token? I haven't answered that question yet. But the idea is you can imagine a monetary system, and we started out with just a simple notion of a token that you can set up a list for.
Although here, if he tries to break through, that might actually give you 10 tokens to spend on other people. It's like I'm cool. Bill broke through to me. I must be either I'm getting fired or I'm important, right?
I think my token would probably be the same interruption token no matter who's calling in. Is the economics of it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So this is the sort of system. Let me just mention. I mentioned Coordinate here. It's going to pull Coordinate right now. And show you what Paul Koch down the hall here, a developer on our team, has published about himself to me, so that I don't spy on him. He's made this available to me. So, and the advanced versions of Bestcom use this kind of predictive technology here. So basically it's saying is that Paul will be available on a computer. He's not on right now. He will be available on a computer within 20 minutes somewhere. And that's going to be, I am available. He'll be reading email in 24 minutes. Should I send it now? Right? And it opens up and explore the details of the structure of when Paul will read my email. If I send it now to him, and here's the cumulative as well as the actual PDF. And it's interesting to know that within an hour and a half, he'll get my mail with a 95% or about 90% chance here. So we're also studying how, if you had access to this, and we have right now an email, you can hover on someone's name right in the to box and see if they're in email right now, active in email, and if not, how long until they'll actually be in the inbox again. And we're studying how that affects, well, if people knew that about their recipients, would it change whether they decide to call a person or walk to their office or send an email? Or would it change the nature of the note? Think about that. If someone's there right now and it says active in email, this light will turn green if they're actually in email right now. Online, you might see that happen in real time.
And what does that mean in email right now?
They're actually actively working in Outlook, in email in general, not my note necessarily, but just there in Outlook right now.
But I mean, it's not just that the application is running, the process
No,
is running.
they're
They're actually typing.
We definitely sense for action activity in the
Fantastic.
not just on top. That's easy to do now. It's a little harder to get the actual activity heuristics, but
fantastic.
Not terribly hard. But so we're very curious how people feel if and how they type notes if someone is actually in email right now versus next expected an email within 4.5 hours. Might change how you write the note. It might be more IM-ish if they're there right now with short notes and so on.
It's
typing really hard.
I've been using my out-of-office message to say I'm like several days behind right now, so don't expect a fast answer.
Yeah.
Because I'm getting slammed. So you could actually look at my actual usage pattern and
or you could actually look at who you're answering and so on, and people wanted to share this out. For you, a day for an answer, as opposed to right now we're very generic. We say you'll be back in the inbox again. Now, some people might. It's very. You can publish different levels of detail to different people, or just publish this information selectively. In this, you can set up who you're publishing what to in the coordinate system, and it's interesting to think about loss of deniability, right? So I'm sitting in email right now, and someone who I've published the fact that I'm in email, who can see that. I really can't say that I didn't get their email message yet. I'm sitting there working in email, and I'm looking around, and I don't answer them for 2 days. They were there, and they got the note. So it might change even people's sense of responsibility for answering for people who actually are getting information, that kind of rich presence information. Coordinate not only if Paul publishes to me. Okay, so Paul publishes. So Coordinate also can actually let me know if Paul turns on one bit on his computer, whether or not he's talking or not right now. The same sensors we use now, but beyond that, when he's talking, it'll tell me how much time until he's likely to stop talking. So it shows me that, and basically we're just collecting lots of data all the time, and as far as some background here, we're doing machine learning, and in real time, in this case, this particular view, we're taking events out of a database, doing Bayesian structure search in real time for the query, and then making inferences with that model to compute how much the forecast. So we do that for conversational periods as well. And
is this the similar technology you guys are using to predict when traffic jams will clear?
Yeah, we structure that problem differently, but it's related. We also have tried several methods there, but one of them was what's called structure learning, where you search through a set of variables and dependencies and find the best the model that best explains the data, and that's how that works. So we waited a little bit longer now. You see this curve is starting to bend now. Paul hasn't been back for a while, and the system's updating its sense for when he'll be back in his office. We use this in a variety of ways in the Bestcom system for scheduling calls. One of the versions of the system actually use these kind of curves for email, for example, and for notification to limit the rescheduling times to a time so as to allow enough time for the recipient to be alerted that you scheduled the call for an hour and a half from now. Or I can say, don't attempt to reschedule if no time is available within one day. Delay at least 30 minutes so I can become aware of the appointment, and so on. This is the kind of the rule-based version of that system. By the way, forwarding is kind of interesting. We actually allow. You can basically say when this computer is locked, when the screensaver is running, when messenger status is set to away, or busy, and so on, or always, turn on forwarding. So I get up, leave my office right now. The system switches into a mode where important people will their calls will jump right to my cell phone through the intercom PBX here.
Okay.
What's really cool is I set my system up so it actually tells me it's a Bestcom call. So it actually says Bestcom calling on my cell phone, which is a lot of fun. So wherever I'm anywhere, if the phone rings and it's somebody coming through the Bestcom system, it says Bestcom call, and I always pick it up because I know that my preferences, it's matching my preferences. I should be picking up no matter what I'm doing typically, and it's typically right. You also can set up numbers by time here. It's kind of cool. You basically, again, that palette, you can basically create these different numbers and policies for what times of day the system should forward in different ways, which is also very nice.
Can it sense when you're at home? For instance,
it actually knows the computer you're on, and the computer.
Well, certainly if you lock your computer, because like right now I have my computer locked, right? So nobody can sign into it and send malicious email. And could it use that event to say he's away from his computer? Let's forward.
That's what it does. When it's locked, when the screensaver decide any one of those contextual features, and it'll work. The Communicator system actually, the product line actually has the feature on it where you can actually assign forwarding policies based on the machine you're on, or the machine that you just came off of, and so on. It has some of the richness in the forwarding area, which is very nice to see.
How did you get interested in this?
Oh God, I think that to me it's a real turn on to think about using machine learning and rule-based systems and policies that are variants of machine learning that can be derived from machine learning, always reasoning methods to bring people closer together. So I view this as glue and new kinds of friction-free communication that will bring people together when they need to talk to one another. And the idea of actually not just making the if, when, and how to communicate part of the story, but the integration of computation with communication is a really rich area. And when we first started talking about Bestcom at Microsoft, we got a lot of the senior executives very interested in this as well. I think I was meeting with Bob Muglia, and Bob Muglia said he read my Think Week paper, and he said to me, Microsoft is a communications company. Office, PowerPoint, Word are communications tools. This is just the next step. Think about it.
Yeah.
The idea of being able to actually not just to talk to the right person at the right time, but to punch through and drag something with you. And even in the ET Bestcom system that I just showed, you can sort of drag documents in as part of your rescheduling and or as part of your communication and share documents and so on. And this became a vision now that's spreading throughout the company of real-time and what I call peri-real-time, or from my medical school days, near real-time communications. Wait 15 minutes, for example, and everything will just be fine, and it'll go nicely. Mixing that with communication of all kinds, and it frankly shows itself in a very frank way or a very salient way in our live communications offerings and our meeting software coming out of the RTC group, but more subtly, where you can now in Outlook, using Communicator, hover and see really rich presence information when you hinge on a person's name you want to mail to. You can pull down and literally right-click on someone's name and call them directly,
Interesting.
actually looking at their presence, and that's part of our
I was
the
just
current
thinking,
product line.
as you're talking about this, I mean the pattern that you're describing of interactions and machine learning, etc., could actually be used just for machines, for operating systems, for example, to be able to communicate, to be able to know when processes, I'll do this when this process happens, or I won't do that when this process happens. Take it down to a lower level, as far as a typical pattern that at least that's what I'm hearing. That makes sense to me, which
That
may not mean
machines-
anything.
The machines in general could be more helpful.
That machines in
systems.
general, because they learn about what's going on inside of them, and you could set preferences amongst themselves, inside of themselves, about okay, when this happens, I'm going to do this. When this happens, I'll do this. This always breaks through. This is always
I'm not sure
important.
if we haven't really announced this publicly yet.
Oh.
I guess this is public.
Okay.
But we actually, as an example of that, we're very excited that we shipped in the Vista operating system in the Superfetch subsystem. Actually, a Superfetch team working very closely with in the systems group.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea is Vista will, with our code and code that was extended by the OS people, some great people over there,
Mm-hmm.
will watch what you're doing, watch the sequences, what you launch, and we'll be basically prefetching applications into memory. So we're heating up the memory, so it'll be hot. By the time you get there, with some good set of probabilities,
Mm-hmm.
your app will already be there and hot and ready to go, like one of those, the way it felt when color TVs finally became pre-warmed up.
Sure.
in
Yeah,
the
fantastic.
60s, in the late 60s, they just instant on.
Mm-hmm.
So that code went in, and we did lots of studies to show for actual workloads from real world users how much it can help this prefetching. So yes, we'll see it in more ways than that. Systems that actually understand your intention someday, that know when you need help,
Mm-hmm.
that understand per our previous conversations, the urgency of just different email messages coming in,
Mm-hmm.
that automatically assign this notion of the cost of delayed review of that message, and so on, which which links up with the Bestcom project. One of the cool experiences you have with the ET Bestcom system, is also the ability to actually not just have everything go automated, but to give input in real time.
Mhm.
So remember, I got to SeaTac Airport. I was traveling. I just wanted to get my email on the ground, so I sat, when I came out of the terminal, at the airport, opened my laptop up, got on wireless, and I'm reading email, and I'm on the corporate network at Microsoft, and I see a little pop-up here. When calls come in, it's sort of like a little Outlook or priorities pop-up, and it says, call from this person who's coming in right now. It has a particular policy. In this case, it was going to go to voicemail. And I said, something? I'm freer than you thought. I'll take it. And so you can just click right on that
Yep.
little pop-up and say, send to my cell phone.
Yeah, I've used it.
And isn't that great?
Mm-hmm.
So the idea of it's mixed initiative. The system has this policy, but it's setting up a little flag and it's saying, you can change this if you want. Just hinge on that little window, and basically say cell phone, and there I am in the airport, and it goes, and this ring, hi, how you doing? I know who it is, and so on, and it basically was because it's coming through a mixture of TCP/IP and wireless and the good old-fashioned old POT, plain old telephone system, the old POTS approach. So I think we'll be seeing more of this as we move on into the future, and I think there's a.
Why wouldn't everybody go work at the beach with a system like this?
I'm telling you, it's amazing what people get.
Your boss would never know where you are, right?
And they don't have to.
Until
They'll
he
always
wants to
know
meet
where
with
you
you.
are.
They don't have to, right?
You'll always know where you are.
Well, it depends. I think that what's going to happen in the future is a couple things. I think that there'll be very rich and easy to use controls for, as well as social mores and expectations. So I don't think people will tend to publish a lot about themselves, about their presence. But what's kind of cool is, with the Bestcom approach, is you can publish rich presence and rich preferences to your private communications agent, and only your agent knows what's going on, and your agent talks to the incoming caller's agent. It's like, hey, babe, hey, buddy, how have your agent talk to my agent? and so without sharing details,
Yeah.
preferences can be matched, which is really nice,
Excellent.
and calls can be taken care of. For example, I don't give out my cell phone number almost at all anymore, even less than I did before, because I just give my office number out, and I trust the Bestcom system to handle the jumps. So people call this one number, and my agent knows my cell phone number and knows how to get to me through the system. So
Yeah.
it knows when the phone is locked or the screensaver's on, which people will get through, and so on.
Now,
Wow.
can you? Because I give out my cell phone number out in public.
Can you retract it? Let's see. Watch this. I'm just kidding.
Oh.
Go ahead.
Can you apply this kind of system to an external kind of system? And in other words, is Microsoft going to make this for normal cell phone users or for normal home users? You know, and allow them to use an agent like this on their systems, and rather than here at Microsoft, we have a great centralized IT department that keeps our phone system
Right.
running. And
Well, there are several projects underway right now, and that get into the idea of how can we actually integrate this with home users, with consumer systems at home, and so on, beyond the corporate PBXs and so on. And I foresee someday you get your software, you take it out, and you plug in your DSL cable or cable modem cable into one clip-in jack, and you plug in your incoming phone line at the other jack.
Mm-hmm.
You set your preferences, and you're off to the races.
yeah.
I see that happening.
Do you ever see a day where we're going to go even further than this? Like, for instance, I get hundreds of emails a day, and probably 30% of them are things like, I wrote an interesting weblog post that you might be interested in, right? It's a very common pattern. Could we have a system that learns, after I respond to the same kind of email pattern, 50 times, that it could see, hey, there's a pattern here that we keep seeing. Somebody says weblog, and give this answer back, and then apply it to a task list or put it in a folder or.
There's work going on at Microsoft Research on our team and some other teams, as well as in academic centers and other industrial labs that are looking at new ways to handle communications, and in particular looking at learning about tasks and actions in email, from email, understanding how to respond. There are, in the CRM industry, there are tools that have existed for several years now that automatically classify an email message. Let's say, I'm having trouble with my television set, and a company won't even, won't even have to read that message. Instead, a classifier says, "Oh, it's one of these problems with this television line. Let's send out the standard response on this. Have you checked whether it's plugged in or not?" And that's maybe not the most a nice example, but here's what you do in these cases, and if you have trouble with this, then send back mail to this email address. So automatically triaging email by learning about how people talk about various kinds of problems, needs, and goals. Same can be happening for personal mail. So our NLP group, we collaborated with that team on aspects of this project. Came up with a system that automatically identified tasks just from raw email, and actually let you call out the tasks and pull them out and put them on a list. We extended that a bit in collaboration to identify promises. And it's very interesting. I mean, reminder, you told somebody you would do this. Or they told you they would do this.
Yeah.
So the idea of a promise or a commitment management system that can be automated. Just keep track of these things. You can say, what things have I promised lately that I haven't come through on? And get a quick list, and you go,
Sending out Channel 9 guys.
let me start with the oldest ones first, and the most urgent, and take care of those, and maybe have an automatic cut and paste apology there too. Yeah. So anyway, so you see, we've seen one example, which is Bestcom, which came out of our larger information agent project, which we talked about last time, priorities, and notification platform, and so on. But this one focuses on interpersonal communications, which really turns me on as a, it's one of these, can technology help with world peace? Well, let's start with getting people together when they want to talk to one another, and maybe later on we'll get to deeper notions of technology to
Yeah, when the
mediate.
Chinese president needs to talk to George Bush, you can.
Right.
How do you get through all his filtering systems? You know,
Sounds like
avoid,
sounds like
avoid
it-
World War III.
Sounds like it might be mediated by Bill Gates.
Yeah.
You know.
How did that phone call get through to Bill?
Right.
Yeah.
So I hope you enjoy this brief tour.
Totally.
I thought maybe let me see if I have a little list here. I think it's really fun to share this kind of activity with people. We just quickly. Here's a quick view of where we were on March 4th, 2005. We had of the ET system here, 12,000 users. That's a big chunk of Microsoft campus here in
Absolutely.
Redmond. And the most advanced users doing cost benefit were about 1,000 at the time, 865. The cool thing is we have data on these people. One of the deals was in using our system, we log your settings and so on, and so we're still processing this data. But it's very interesting as to how people set things up, how they use them, how their calls were routed, and so on, based on the data. I should mention that we got a lot of feedback while we were building this system. I love stuff like this, from a user. Someone was saying, this dynamic interruptibility thing, this context, is the coolest new feature I've seen you put in. Now, if you can only do this from my door, and so on. And here's another one that came in back when we first started filling some of these features back in 2003. And to all those people at Microsoft, to all you 12,000, we really got a lot of feedback and really appreciated this when we built the system. And your ideas were incorporated as best we could into the system as you used it. And there's no better way to test the system than with the actual people who are depending on it for real life. The really interesting thing was when Communicator came out, we went to the dog food, which means that if people don't use that verb out there, to test it internally and to eat our own dog food. There were so many people who didn't want to give up the system that we literally negotiated with the Communicator people who were shipping basically the daughter of ET Bestcom. We negotiated with them. Basically, we're going to shut down the system for several weeks, and then only invite back 1,000 users who we knew to be the hardest core users that used it the most, that had the most advanced settings and so on, and they got special permission. But it was heartwarming to see when we were taking this thing down and offline, all the supportive notes and teary-eyed notes that this really was such a great prototype that helped people with their productivity. Some people basically wanted to send messages to VP saying, no, I'm sorry, this is critical for my needs. I'm based on the East Coast. I want my Microsoft Redmond number to forward appropriately to me. It's part of my sales work. So we actually had a range of people who were kind of wispy-eyed and sharing memories with us, but more kind of hardcore. No, I'm sorry, this is still a working tool for me, and Communicator doesn't yet deliver some of these advanced features that I use all the time. And so we said, well, until Communicator has parity in some of these features, we'll maintain the system and still do research, but on a smaller set of people now.
Yeah.
Excellent.
That's what we are.
So since we have 2 minutes left, what's next for you? What are you thinking about right now? Because this was work you've been doing over the
Last several
3 or
years,
4 years.
3 or 4 years. We have some really fun stuff coming out in the what you might call the ubiquitous computing space. We're very excited about the mobile space now, and we're looking at mobile search, which we're very excited about. We think that mobile search is going to be a very hot area to look at. I can't tell you how many internet searches I do with this device on the fly.
Yeah.
Making that easier, making that better, looking at effective revenue models with advertising and services that work with that is a very exciting area for us. We have a very interesting piece of work coming out that I won't talk about yet that involves what you do on the fly with these devices in terms of products and services. That's a lot of fun, very exciting, that we showed at Tech Fest this year internally at Microsoft with working prototypes. The whole idea of presence while mobile is very rich, and I have to say, not to worry out there in terms of this happening to people on their devices, because this is only our research group here. But we're running some tools on our mobile devices now that back on our servers are sensing what's going on in someone's life. And just think about this as an agent working on your behalf, just for you, that understands your preferences and goals. But I went to the airport to drop off a friend, and I came back to the office, and Muru Subramani here said to me, he was looking at these logs, and he said, Eric, I can't believe you were going 72 miles an hour near SeaTac Airport. You were in email, and you actually said okay to somebody. And I said, sorry. But the idea that
Wow.
I'm working on my desktop here, and we're wiring back packets back through GPRS to our servers that are analyzing my needs and goals and so on, and we can see that kind of rich data. We also know with our Bluetooth microphone talking to this thing, when it's sampling me, whether I'm talking or not, stop and go traffic or not, and so on. So it's a lot of fun what you can do, and we want to manage privacy effectively. We want to come up with new kinds of services, and that's one area of work that we're pushing on.
Oh, cool. I better not speed and go into the airport anymore. I'll get a call from
That's
Bill.
right.
Hey, Bill, you
Hit return to pay, right?
Yeah.
Just pay right now while you're driving,
Totally.
Yeah, wait at the red light, then hit return to pay your ticket, right?
Yeah. Well, cool. Thanks for spending an hour with us.
Oh, it was fantastic seeing you guys again.
Great.